You're watching Her Hoops, where we don't sugarcoat the truth about women's basketball. And right now, the WNBA is imploding. 11:59 p.m. Eastern. The CBA deadline just expired. No extension, no deal. And instead of the players' union coming to the table like professionals, they released one of the most unhinged, tone-deaf statements I've ever seen in sports labor history. I'm talking inflatable rats. I'm talking regressive provisions. I'm talking about a union that somehow turned $1 billion opportunity into a public relations disaster.
The WNBA CBA deadline between the players union and the owners passed at 11:59 in the Eastern PM, and it's a wrap. There was no extension of it. As we talked about yesterday, the owners came out and I think looked very good by saying we're not going to lock them out. All right, but yet they could not.
The owners? They said they wouldn't lock the players out. They offered massive salary increases. They stayed calm, stayed professional. And the players union? They're out here crashing out in real time. Look, I wanted to support the players. I really did. But after reading their statement, after watching them turn this into a social revolution instead of a business negotiation, I'm team owner, and I never thought I'd say that. If you think I'm exaggerating, stick around, because what I'm about to show you is going to blow your mind. Hit that like button, subscribe to Her Hoops, and let's break down how the WNBA Players Union.
What's on the table now, right? We know about the huge salary increase. We know that they want revenue sharing that I just don't see any way that they're going to get, because I don't think the owners believe the owners believe the league's health is in a position to give a revenue share like that, and you've never turned a profit, which is, let's be honest, that's the big one. That's the huge one.
Just committed career suicide. Let me set the scene. For 28 years, the WNBA has been hemorrhaging money, not breaking even, not struggling, losing money, year after year after year. The NBA has been propping this league up like life support. Owners have been writing checks they'll never get back, and for nearly 3 decades, they've done it anyway. Then 2024 happened. Caitlin Clark walks in. Ratings explode. Attendance skyrockets. Suddenly, everyone's talking about the WNBA. Merchandise is flying off shelves.
They're crashing out, and they look less and less professional by the moment. Fans are recognizing this. There are things that I just they cannot keep this from getting personal, and it's making them look worse and worse as this thing's going on. So this was released. This was their statement. Quote, you may be like, Rhodes, you got glasses on. Yeah, because they released this statement with this tiny ass.
A new media rights deal worth over $2 billion gets signed. This was the moment. The pivot point. The league finally had momentum. So what do the players do? They decide to opt out of the CBA 2 years early. They demand a 30% revenue share based on gross revenue, not profit. They want it now, before the media money even kicks in, before the owners see a single dime of return on their decades of investment.
Despite demonstrating our willingness to compromise in order to get a deal done, the WNBA and its teams have failed to meet us at the table with the same spirit and seriousness. Instead, they have remained committed to undervaluing player contributions, dismissing player concerns, and running out the clock. Today's display of an inflatable rat, a universal symbol of labor protest outside of the NBA store, calls attention to how the league...
And when the owners say, hold on, let's be strategic about this. Let's see what the revenue actually looks like first. The players' union loses their minds. They release a statement so long, so dramatic, so dripping with victim mentality that it makes a soap opera look subtle. This isn't about fair pay anymore. This is about power, and it's about to backfire spectacularly. Let's compare the two statements side by side. The WNBA statement?
This misguided approach will not work. In the face of the league and team's actions, players remain undeterred, unafraid, and unwavering in their commitment to doing what is necessary to secure a transformational new CBA. This agreement must include a salary system tied to a meaningful share of the revenue that would not exist without player labor, mandate professional working conditions, and require protections that honor players who built the league and set the next generation up for success.
Short, professional, to the point. The current collective bargaining agreement has expired. Negotiations remain ongoing. We recognize the importance of building on our momentum. Our priority is a deal that significantly increases player salaries, enhances the player experience, and supports long-term growth. Done. Clean. Businesslike. Now the players' union statement? Buckle up. They open with complaints about the owners undervaluing player contributions and running out the clock. They talk about an inflatable rat. Yes, an actual inflatable rat outside the NBA store as a universal symbol of labor protest. They accuse the league of jeopardizing the livelihoods of players and preserving regressive provisions that no longer belong in women's basketball. Then they hit you with this gem. Pay equity is not optional, and progress is long overdue. Pay equity. Equity, not equality, not fair market value. Equity. This is where it all falls apart, because this isn't a negotiation anymore. This is a manifesto. This is activism dressed up as labor law, and fans are seeing right through it. The comment sections are brutal. People who initially supported the players? They're jumping ship. Fast. Insufferable. Over the top. Team owners now. The union just turned their biggest bargaining chip, public support, into dust. Here's where it gets really messy. The players' union isn't just asking for more money, they're demanding a complete power shift, and they're framing it as a civil rights issue. Let me be clear. Wanting better pay? Totally fair. Wanting better working conditions? Absolutely reasonable. But demanding 30% of gross revenue from a league that has never turned a profit? That's not negotiation. That's delusion. And here's the kicker. They're doing this 2 years too early. The new media rights deal doesn't even kick in yet. The owners haven't seen a single dollar from that $2 billion agreement. They don't know what the actual revenue is going to look like. They're working off projections, not reality. But the players' union doesn't care. They want their cut now, before the league proves it can sustain itself, before anyone knows if this Caitlin Clark bump is permanent or just a flash in the pan. And when the owners say, let's wait and see what happens when the money actually comes in, the players call it dismissive and regressive. No, that's called basic business sense. But here's the worst part. The players' union keeps making this personal. They keep injecting social justice language into what should be a straightforward financial negotiation. Marginalize the very people who show up. Honor the players who built the league. Pay equity is not optional. This isn't the language of labor negotiations. This is the language of revolution. And revolutions don't end well when you're negotiating with people who have been bankrolling your existence for 3 decades. Let's get into the specifics of what's actually on the table, because the players' union doesn't want you focusing on this part. The owners have offered massive salary increases. We're talking about raising the average salary significantly, improving travel conditions, better accommodations, chartered flights becoming standard. Things the players have been asking for. These aren't small concessions. These are real, tangible improvements that would fundamentally change the day-to-day experience of being a WNBA player. But the union? They're stuck on revenue sharing. And not just any revenue sharing, they want 30% of gross revenue. Let me explain why that's insane. Gross revenue means before expenses, before arena costs, before salaries, before marketing, before production, before literally anything gets paid. In the NBA, players get around 50% of basketball-related income. But that's after expenses, and the NBA is a multi-billion-dollar profit machine. The WNBA? Still in the red, still being subsidized, still figuring out if this growth is sustainable. And here's the thing that's driving fans crazy: the timing. Caitlin Clark just gave this league the biggest shot of relevance it's ever had. Ratings are up, buzz is real. The foundation is being laid for actual long-term success. And instead of riding that wave, instead of saying, let's build on this together and revisit compensation in 2 years when we see real numbers, The union is threatening the season. They're holding the one moment of momentum this league has ever had hostage for a deal that no financially responsible owner could ever agree to. It's self-sabotage in real time. Let's zoom out and talk about what this means for the WNBA as a whole. Because this isn't just about one failed negotiation. This is about the future of the league and whether it even has one. For 28 years, the WNBA survived on goodwill, on the NBA's backing, on the idea that women's basketball deserved to exist, even if it wasn't profitable. And you know what? A lot of people agreed with that. A lot of people wanted the WNBA to succeed. But goodwill only takes you so far. At some point, you have to deliver. You have to show growth. You have to prove you understand basic business principles. And right now, the Players Union is proving the opposite. They're proving they care more about ideology than sustainability, more about optics than actual progress, more about winning a culture war than building a viable product. And fans are noticing. Go into any comment section. Go onto social media. People who were cheering for the players 6 months ago are now saying, you know what? Maybe the league should just fold. That's how bad this has gotten. The union had one job: capitalize on the Caitlin Clark era, secure reasonable gains, and set the league up for long-term success. Instead, they're alienating fans, antagonizing owners, and turning what should have been a victory lap into a funeral march. And here's the tragedy. If the 2025 season gets canceled, if this league implodes, the players won't blame themselves. They'll blame the owners. They'll blame the system. They'll blame everyone except the people who turned a golden opportunity into a PR disaster. So here's where we are. The CBA has expired. No deal, no extension. And instead of coming to the table like professionals, the WNBA Players Union just delivered one of the most unhinged, self-destructive statements in sports labor history. They brought inflatable rats to the NBA store. They accused the owners of being regressive and dismissive. They framed a business negotiation as a civil rights movement. And in doing so, they lost the room. Fans are jumping ship. Support is evaporating. The goodwill that Caitlin Clark built in one season is being torched by a union that can't get out of its own way. Look, I wanted to support the players, I really did. But when you demand 30% of gross revenue from a league that's never made a profit? When you opt out of your CBA 2 years early before the new media money even arrives? When you turn every negotiation into a social justice lecture? You're not fighting for fair pay. You're fighting for power you haven't earned. And the worst part? The owners have been bankrolling this league for 28 years. They didn't have to. They could have pulled the plug a decade ago. But they didn't. And this is how the Players Union repays them. So yeah, I'm team owner, and I never thought I'd say that. The WNBA just had its best year ever, and the Players Union might have just killed it. If you agree, smash that like button. Subscribe to Her Hoops for more no BS breakdowns. Drop a comment and let me know. Are you team player or team owner? Because this fight, it's just getting started.